Hello students. Today we will talk about the art of Mesopotamia 10,000 BC to 700 AD. In this lesson our objective are acquaint the students about Mesopotamian art in the larger context of art history. Understand the important works of the era. Know about the stylistic features of the movement. The components of this chapter are introduction, geographical contours, contributions of the Mesopotamians to the world, history, timeline, Mesopotamian sculpture, Mesopotamian architecture, the cities, cylinder seals, clay tablets, cuneiform. The ancient civilization of Mesopotamia are the source of earliest surviving art. These civilizations were situated between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. Dating back to the 3500 BCE, Mesopotamian art was meant to serve as a way to glorify powerful rulers and create and restore their connections to divinity. Art was made from natural resources such as stone, shells, alabaster and marble. Art was primarily meant for didactic purposes only. No artist signatures can be found on most of the work because the pieces were meant to embody the subject matter rather than the creator. Popular items that typify this time period include cylindrical seals, narrative relief sculptures, and lavishly decorated tombs. The major civilization that flourished during the Mesopotamian time was the Sumerians, 3500 to 2300 BC, Akkadians 2180 to 2340 BC, Babylonians 1792 to 1750 BC, Hittites 1600 to 1200 BC, Assyrians 1000 to 600 BC, and Persians 559 to 331 BC. In other words, the region passed through a series of historical periods involving the Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, Amorites, Kassites, Elamites, Hammurabi, Mitanni, Chaldeans, Arameans, Persians, Greeks, Parthians, and Sassanians, and today the Arabs. In the 6th and 5th millennium BCE, agriculture developed in the alluvial plains between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which Greeks called Mesopotamia, meaning the land between the rivers. Now, in present-day Iraq, it was an ancient region in the eastern Mediterranean, bounded in the northeast by the Zagros Mountains and in the southeast by the Arabian Plateau. Let us briefly touch upon the contributions of Mesopotamians to the world. The Mesopotamians built canals to distribute water throughout the land, uniting thousands of villages. Other important developments or inventions credited to the Mesopotamians include, but are by no means limited to, domestication of animals, agriculture, common tools, sophisticated weaponry and warfare, the chariot, wine, beer, demarcation of time into hours, minutes and seconds, religious rites, the sailboats and irrigation. The first plough was invented here. The potter's wheel evolved into the wheels of the cart in this civilization. The Mesopotamians need to control the water for these uses gave strength to their political leaders and led to the development of the city-state. Among them were Ur, Assur, Nineveh, Nimrud, Amek, Kish, Umma, Erech, Lagash, Tello, Nippur, Larsa and Babylon. The civilization, the Sumerians specifically, is also credited with the invention of writing. Although writing is also known to have developed in Egypt, in the Indus Valley, in China, and to have taken from independently in Mesoamerica. The imperative must have been due to a long distance trade for keeping more careful track of accounts. Mesopotamia was the setting for such famous Bible stories as the Garden of Eden, the Tower of Babylon, and the journey of Abraham from the city of Ur. The earliest known civilization of Mesopotamia grew up around Sumer in the south of modern-day Iraq from about 5000 BC. As many cultures developed, their progress is seen firstly in their painted pottery, figurines of clay and veined alabaster, amulets and stamp seals became increasingly sophisticated. In terms of housing, there are round structures at Arpichia, T-shaped houses at Tel Es Sawan, wide at Irdu. Archaeologists excavated a sequence of shrines from an early mud brick but to an elaborate raising building with buttressed walls. These buttresses were both decorative and structural and became a feature of Sumerian architecture. At Ukair, the whole temple was adorned with mural painting. Cylinder seals were carved, and these are our main source for the iconography of the different periods. We also know that the first use of copper occurred in Sumer as far back as 5000. By 3000 BCE, as a result of these innovations, we find extensive urban development and creation of at least 12 city-states, each ruled by a king. First of the Sumerians controlled the south, filling their independent city-states with the fruits of new technology, literacy, and impressive art and architecture. Increasing rivalry between these states left them vulnerable to invaders like Elamites 2530 to 2450, and then the Akkadians 2334 to 2154 under their founder Sargon of Akkad 2334 to 2279. When invaders from further north in turn conquered the Akkadians about 2154, the Sumerians regained power locally. During this period, the city-states of Ur and Lagash thrived under strong leaders. Amorites were next to dominate the south. Under them and their king Hammurabi, a new unified society arose with its capital in the city of Babylon. About 934 AD, the Assyrians conquered Babylon. By the time of Tiglath-Pileser III, they were the most powerful nation on earth, controlling Babylonia, Egypt, Asia Minor, Caucasus, North Africa, and the Eastern Mediterranean basin. This Neo-Assyrian empire was finally brought down at the fall of Nineveh in 612 AD by an alliance of Babylonians, Scythians, Medes, Parthians, and others. After the fall of Babylon in 539 AD, Mesopotamia became a province of the Persian Achaemenid Empire. Before we move to the arts and architecture, let me introduce you to the Mesopotamian gods. The ancient Mesopotamian religion, the bull was worshipped as the supreme male god Anu. He was also the sky god, and his roar was thunder. Nanresig, the great mother goddess, was the lady of mountain. Enlil was the god of the air. Ea or Enki, the water god. Nana or Sin, the moon goddess. Utu, later Smash, and the sun god. And Inanna, later Star, and Start, the goddess of love, fertility, and war. Let us now talk about Mesopotamian sculpture. It features a distinct stylized aesthetic. The figures are typically presented either as front profile or side profile. Textures are often achieved through repetition of lines or dots. Lamassu, discussed in great detail in the chapter Art of Assyria. Guardian angels are one of the most impressive pieces of Mesopotamian sculptors. These are three-dimensional at the front. Their sides are only carved in relief. They take the form of animals, real or imagery, or animals with human heads. Limestone statues dated to about 2900 and 2600 BC from the square temple in Asnuna, excavated in 1932 to 1933, speak lots about the religious aspect of the Sumerian art. These devotee figurines, men and women, are related to an ancient practice where individual worshippers could set up images of themselves in a shrine before a larger, more elaborate image of a god. Figures are represented with stylized faces and bodies, dressed in clothing that emphasizes pure cylindrical shapes. They stand solemnly, hands collapsed in respect, perhaps a posture expected in devotional contexts. The bold, glaring eyes may be related to statements in contemporary Sumerian texts that advise worshippers to approach their gods with an alternative gaze. As with the face of the woman from Uruk, arch brows were inlaid with dark shell, stone, or bitumen that once emphasized the huge staring eyes. The male figures, bare-chested and dressed in what appear to be sheepskin skirts, are stocky and muscular, with heavy legs, large feet, big shoulders, and cylindrical bodies. The female figures are as massive as the men. Their long sheepskin skirts reveal sturdy legs and feet. Let us look at some more examples. And now to Mesopotamian architecture. As Mesopotamia is virtually devoid of stone, bricks made from clay or mud were the primary construction material. Consequently, little survives of Mesopotamian architecture. Mesopotamian buildings were almost exclusively arched because of the use of bricks. Within a Mesopotamian city, much of the architecture, including palaces, temples, and city walls, was often linked together, forming a vast municipal complex. The architectural bulk of a Mesopotamian city was relieved with spacious courtyards. The most distinctive type of Mesopotamian architecture is the ziggurat, a structure shaped like a stepped pyramid. A ziggurat typically featured little or no interior space, instead serving mainly as a platform for a temple. The exterior of the ziggurat was often decorated with glazed tiles, murals or mosaics, and landscaped with trees and gardens. Ziggurats are exemplary of load-bearing construction, a system of building that began in the Neolithic period. Their massive walls had small openings or none at all. They were usually solid stepped structures tapering towards the top, with a wide base supporting the entire weight of the ziggurat. Let us look at some more views of ziggurat. Let us talk about cities now. Between 4000 and 3000 BC, a major cultural shift seems to have taken place. Agricultural villages evolved into cities simultaneously and independently in both northern and southern Mesopotamia. In these cities, organized religion played an important role as they worshipped numerous gods and goddesses. Those who controlled rituals and the sacred cities eventually became priests. Each city had a special protective deity, and people believed the fate of the city depended on the power of that deity. Large architectural complexes, clusters of religious, administrative and service buildings developed in each city as centers of ritual and worship and also of government. Towards the end of the 4th millennium, monumental architecture characterized at Uruk by huge shrines with complex plans and elaborately niched walls, or with engaged or freestanding columns, studded with a mosaic of colored clay cones in geometric patterns. Look at the chapter Art of Sumeria for detailed discussions. Cylinder seals. The earliest examples of cylinder seals were produced during the Uruk period. The seal here is a small stone cylinder into which an image has been carved in a process known as intaglio printing. The seal's hard, incised surface would have been pressed against a soft surface, leaving a raised impression in reverse. When a cylinder seal was rolled across a clay tablet or a closure on a container, it created repetitive band of images. Seal impressions were used originally to designate ownership and to keep inventories and accounts, and later to legalize documents. They offer a rich view of Mesopotamian iconography and the development of pictorial style over 3000-year period. Clay tablets, cuneiform. The use of seal impressions to designate ownership contributed to the development of writing. During the Uruk period, around 3500 to 3000 BC, abstract wedge-shaped characters begin to appear on clay and stone tablets. The earliest known written language comes from Sumer in southern Mesopotamia and persisted as the language of the priestly and intellectual classes throughout Mesopotamian history. Its script is called cuneiform, from the Latin word cuneus, meaning wage. The Sumerians would scroll their picture words using reeds as writing instrument on wet clay, which would then dry into stone hard tablets, which is very good because it is hard to lose your records if they are big old heavy tablets. Also, it would be more permanent. After circa 2300 BC, a Semitic language, Akkadian, belonging to a period who may have come from the West, became more prevalent than Sumerian. The Sumerian Akkadian cultures coexisted for many centuries. Then their languages roughly correspond to the two main geographical divisions of Mesopotamia, Sumer and Akkad. Sometimes after the invention of writing, a Mesopotamian literature developed. The written word, which had originated in response to a practical need for daily recordings, became a tool of creative expression. Much epic poetry of Mesopotamia deals with the origins of gods and humans, the history of kingship, the founding of cities, and the development of civilization.